Testify on, for, or against the measure? If not, the chair recognizes Representative Troxclair to close on the measure.
Thank you all for your time and attention to this bill. I want to make it clear that there is nothing in this bill that would prohibit this organization called Up Together from continuing to collect philanthropic donations and providing that charity as they see fit. My heart breaks for so many of the people who we heard from today who were negatively impacted not just by COVID, but by circumstances outside of their control. And that is the exact role that our charities, our churches, our communities are there to play, to lift them up and to support them when needed. And it seems like that's exactly what Up Together has done with some of their private donations. With that said, the people who aren't here today are the tens of thousands of people across the state who are struggling to get by and who do not qualify for these programs. It is those low and middle income people who are robbed by the government to support these kinds of programs. And they're on the hook with rising property taxes. And then they lose their homes. And when government robs Peter to pay Paul, you end up perpetuating a cycle where the people who didn't previously qualify for these programs because they were just above those income levels now fall into it and can't help pay anymore. This is not a moral conflict. I don't think there's a single person on this dais who doesn't want the best for every person in this room, for every person in Texas, for every person in this country. Some of you know that my parents met while they were both working for an orphanage in Mexico. And I grew up with a heart to serve people through nonprofits and through churches. That's why I've volunteered, in food kitchens. That's why I've volunteered for years with Meals on Wheels. And I'm so grateful for my parents who did not start out with means, that they set the example that caring for others is important and it matters. And so I don't want to leave this dais today with the impression that me or anybody else doesn't care for the stories and for the families that we heard from. There are avenues to do this. There are safety nets in place. If it's not a government safety net, if it's not the indigent health care, the food banks, the rental assistance, it is the local churches. It is the charities like Up Together. All this bill says is that you can't use government funds to do this. And so I appreciate your conscious consideration of this. It is clear that these programs have spread more quickly. And honestly, some of the most urban areas where people that are least affordable. I mean, I was looking up some of the tax rates in some of the areas that have these programs, and it's the highest places. It's the most expensive places to live. I no longer live in the city of Austin either, because my property taxes, and that's why I ran for office in the first place, as many of you know, because I couldn't afford my own property taxes. And so, by continuing these programs, we perpetuate the unaffordable ness of our state, and we push more people into poverty. And if we care about lifting people up and about protecting the prosperity that the Texas Miracle has provided through limited government, through reasonable regulations, and through a pro-job environment that allows people to seek employment that serves their family while also providing and filling the gaps through nonprofits for people who don't, this bill is a part of ensuring that Texas Miracle continues. Thank you so much. ask for your favorable consideration.
You have a question? Okay, we have some questions from the dais. Vice Chair Queener.
Thank you. Thank you for laying out this bill, Representative Troxclair. I didn't understand, you're saying that these programs can exist, they can't just be paid for by government funds, but I think as I read your bill, it's a little broader than that. It says, unless explicitly authorized by law, a political subdivision may not adopt or enforce any sort of ordinance. And I think as you know, county commissioners, court, city councils, even to use donated funds, have to accept those funds, take official action, even to be able to disperse funds if a donor wanted to move them through the county. Like the El Paso program we were just discussing, over half those funds were donated.
Yes, and charities can continue to operate as they see fit.
But they couldn't partner under this bill with a county commissioner court or a city council to do that.
No, not
Through the
with
government.
not with government funds that are stolen from taxpayers who can't afford to pay for this program.
Stolen?
Yeah,
But
there's
My-
a
my
lot of
point
people
is-
who are not in this room who can't afford to fund this program.
the way your bill is worded, it also includes if funds were donated to the government entity to do it.
There shouldn't be government entities in charge of these programs. If a nonprofit wants to do that, they are more than welcome. They don't need the government's permission to go and do that.
Why do you think the hazard with direct cash assistance is greater than the hazard of people working or not with food bank programs, educational programs for adult career education, indigent healthcare, all things that are services counties currently invest in?
Yeah, there are safety net programs that are set up for people who are in situations where they need food or housing, and we can debate that the relevance of those programs at another time. I am concerned about tax dollars that are coming from taxpayers being used to provide cash payments where there is not a requirement to seek work or to be working. And I want to say that a lot of people who are up here today, they were working, they were seeking work. And again, there is nothing that prohibits up together from continuing to operate with private donations. But no, this is not a central role of government. This ultimately comes down to, if you think that socialism works, this is something this is guaranteed income programs are your jam. If you don't think that socialism works, and clearly I don't, and clearly your history has proven that, then this is a reasonable and responsible thing for us to pass.
I think you did not put words in my mouth in terms of how I see things. But I think what I'm struggling
I'm sorry, did I misspeak? Do you think that socialism doesn't work?
I don't think that's the frame that any of this falls into.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to understand is we have all of these requirements on municipalities and counties to do certain services. Indigent healthcare is a huge one. It's one of our county's biggest expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess what I'm trying to understand is what's so fundamentally different about cash, which is more flexible, supported by many economists, both right and left spectrum, because they don't like the inefficiencies of programs that are more tailored, and they think that in general, if you give people cash, they're going to spend it on what they need. Why do you think cash is such a different line that's in a different category than things like funding people getting career education through counties, which occurs, or funding people getting food assistance through counties, which occurs? Why do you think the cash is different?
There is a clear difference in accountability and a lack of accountability. And if you'd like to discuss the worthiness of other programs or propose a bill to reduce counties' requirements to provide for those programs, I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Cole.
Representative Troxclair, I can understand some of your concerns with cash being too easy or whatever, but I want to get at the heart of what's going on here, because you say that you do charitable work and you care about people like this and all of that, and I believe you. But what's wrong with Social Security? How does that differ from this program?
People who receive Social Security payments have worked for many, many years to pay into that system and have earned those benefits.
So you're not, and so you're not against government safety net programs. You're just against them if they aren't, what, means tested, or, I mean, because people here have clearly testified that they want to work, they have worked, but this was just help during a critical part of their time. And
So,
I'm trying to, can you explain how this program does, and what it sets out for people to be on a path to self-sufficiency is wrong for government? You're having a hard time understanding?
I don't.
You're just
What is-
opposed to taxpayer money being used to help people?
I think the best way to help people is to allow residents to keep as much of their own money in their own pockets. And there is a core role for government, and this is not it.
thank you. Representative Garcia Hernandez.
Yep. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Rep. I did have a question as far as, because I understand this is, for the cash programs, but what about the government, local governments giving to programs that do like rental assistance?
So if we
or-
can, if we
yeah.
can stay on the bill, because, and I would ask the same of the author too, just let's stay on the bill, so.
Well, and I want to make sure, like, that doesn't include those type of programs. Is that correct? Like, that local governments can not offer the cash, but they're allowed to still do things like rental assistance and stuff like that. I just want to make sure that, like, those programs are separate from what you're trying to accomplish in this bill, correct?
This bill only applies to guaranteed income programs, which are cash payments with no requirement to work or seek work.
Got it. Okay. Just wanted to make sure and get that clarification. Because I know at least some of my local governments, they offer different programs like that. And I want to make sure that we're not, hindering that and working in conjunction with some of our Metro Crest services that serve my area who offer those type of programs to individuals. So, great. Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, thank you, Representative Troxclair. House Bill 530 will be left pending